Zaczynałeś? Czekam cały czas.
Okay, hello. I think we will start just in a few seconds. We have still some technical problems, but it's almost done. We have still some places available on the front, so please come on from the, please take it. So I would like to encourage you to sit here. I think it will be more comfortable for all of us. Yay! And 4 people more.
Yes.
Come on, guys, come on. You will hear better. Okay, so I think now is the time when we are really starting. Welcome. Welcome at second Holacracy Practitioners meetup. My name is Basia, and at XSolve I have many roles. Most of the time I am a Scrum Master, but today I am filling a role of a host. Actually, in my agenda I have 2 things. The first one is opening, which one I think is checked. And the second one is meetup goals. So maybe let's talk a bit about this meetup goals. This meetup is not for people who've never heard a thing about Holacracy. We don't want to explain you any basic terms. We don't want to have here any theoretical presentations. So what we want to have instead, actually the answer is in the name of this meetup. It's Holacracy Practitioners. We want to exchange our knowledge, we want to exchange our experience, but also we want to talk about our ideas and about our problems. And saying our, I don't mean only XSolve and Chili, I mean all of us here. That's why we have speakers from companies who are already teal, but also that's why we have this network space, which will be somewhere in the middle of this meetup. So maybe let's go smooth to the first presentation. The first presentation will be held by Katarzyna Leszczyńska-Wodan from Software Mill, and she will tell us how to manage in a self-organized, remote, and transparent company.
Hi everyone, thank you for the invitation. I'm a bit nervous because it's my first talk in English, so please be honest after me how it was. Okay, my name is Kate and I work at Software Mill, as was mentioned just before the few minutes. And what is Software Mill? Software Mill is, of course, software consultancy and software development company, and we work for clients from around the world. And we are teal. We are not Holacracy, but we are teal. And this is a few of inspirations. The first inspiration of our approach was Morningstar. I'm pretty sure that everyone knows what is Morningstar. Hand rise, who knows? Okay, for those who doesn't know, Morningstar is a tomato company. They made and prepare tomato sauce ketchup, and we choose. Okay. Oh, now better. and they choose volunteers, people, and they have the same voice as board members. So we set up the same approach in our company. Now we are 40, and we have 3 founders, well, 4, but now it's 3, and other people are in charge. So we can say that we are 40 CEOs. But we also have a flat structure as Chili and XSolve, but we also have a full transparency. I mean, full means full, like books, like salaries, like rates for clients. And we also work remotely from the very, very beginning. And this topic I'd like to focus in. Okay, I said that we are software house. And we also have R&D, and we cooperate with Warsaw University of Technology on satellite projects with students. But I'd like to focus on what does it mean, remote work. Remote work means no office, no headquarters. Of course, company is registered at Warsaw, but we work from all country. I'm from Krakow. My teammates are from Elbląg, Sucha Beskidzka, Szczecin, and Warsaw, as you can see on the map. And what does it mean for the company? Of course, we don't have headquarters, so we don't have office, and we don't have to spend money for building. But this money we move to the other space. We spend it in another way. But for about this a bit later. And we also have to communicate. And actually, in every company, the main challenge is communication. For us, it's obvious that we have actually 3 ways to communicate. First of all is a Slack, like daily messaging and daily communication. Sometimes we, of course, use this tool for video call, but only internally. And same as in a Slack, we have the same channels on TeamSpeak. Who's the gamer here? Because TeamSpeak, okay, great. Do you know what is TeamSpeak? So TeamSpeak is a tool only for voice communication, and it's activated on push to talk. So if I push the button, then I can talk. No problem. We have no problem with Skype and writing. Oh my God, are you ready for a meeting? Or can I ask you something? Just push the talk and talk with your teammates about the project. And we have also Big Blue Button. Big Blue Button is for video. Actually, it's not for video, but for vision. And this is crucial for us at our daily meetings. And Big Blue Button is only for streaming video. We don't hear each other, but for this we have TeamSpeak. And Big Blue Button looks like in the left corner here. So, meetings, communication and meetings. We have daily Scrum meetings. It looks like, not Scrum, sorry. At Scrum we have 3 questions, we don't have it. We have 1/4, and it's totally random. For example, today was, would you prefer take a shower or take a bath? Or what was the last book you read? Or say something nice about person above on TeamSpeak list, and so on. So this is for our culture to know each other. We are 40, so this daily stand-up takes 30 minutes. And because of that, sometimes we are a bit nervous if we have other tasks, but almost all of us are at these meetings. We have, of course, after that we have some team meetings with projects or other tasks. Like I'm in marketing team, so I have a meeting with my business developer peer and event manager. So we have our own call, and our developers has their own. And meetings are also annual and monthly. Annual are the most important for our culture, spare time. Like we go for a whole weekend and spend times in some nice place like Warmów or Praga or somewhere else when we have time and fun and do absolutely nothing connected with work. But once a month, we have a special meetings. The name is beer, like beer, but we drink it at the end of the day, not from the beginning, because we met whole company in one place. It depends of our schedule. It could be Warsaw, it could be Szczecin or Sucha Beskidzka. I hope so. I've never been there, so that's the hard one. And after lunch, we talk about company issues, company goals, all hard topics which we have to handle and to move company forward. So that meetings are maybe everyone should be at that meetings. So this is very crucial to be in that place, and of course, company return all costs of the journey. And as I mentioned on that slide, we have also best people. Of course, we think that they are best, but how? Because we don't have a headquarters, so we are not limited of the place where company is. So we can hire very, very good developers in smaller cities. So they can spend more time with their families, and we can, of course, cover all equipment for them. So in the topic, the description was that because we are remote, that means win for everyone, for people, for company, and for our customers. And you can think that, okay, for people, yeah, we don't have to spend time in traffic. Average time spending in traffic is 41 minutes in Poland. I didn't know that. I've checked it in research. And for company, of course, I mentioned that we can hire very experienced people. And for customers, is maybe less service because we explain that, okay, we can communicate asynchronous with each other. So we handle with communication with you, your client. So please keep us in mind that we are really good in communication and cooperation abroad. So the question is, does it work? Does it work? I'd like to say yes, but not for everyone. Why? We have 4 myths. I think there's 4 from our perspective. First, working from home is easy peasy. No, it's not. Really, you have to be prepared. You have to set tool sets, and you need to cover every cost of working from home or co-work or shadow hands and whatever. And of course, and it's not for everyone because some people just don't like work in home. It's obvious. So you should be prepared that not everyone like to work alone from home. Maybe the kids are walking and playing and running everything, but there is an option like co-work space. Second myth: employees act in their own self-interest. Okay, it's a small truth, but bigger myth. Why? Let me explain. If I need to do laundry or go shopping in the middle of the day, or I need a nap, I can do it because I can, move my tasks for the end of the day, and in the middle I can do whatever I want if I do my job. So, okay, we need to be in touch with other teammates. And if I want to go from the screen, I should tell them, because it's nice to inform everyone that, okay, guys, I need 2 hours away. And how does it work in us? Pretty well, I think. Thirdly, any company can allow for telecommuting. No, it's not true. Especially if company allows work some employees to work remotely, and everyone else is at the office. There is a huge problem because now in that situation we have 2 funnels of communication. So in the office there is a main information and main tasks are made, and remote workers are excluded from that communication. So you have to have only 1 or 2 as we have channels for communication tools, because in the other side, you will have a huge problem to inform everyone and feel comfortable for your employees. And the last myth is teamwork is impossible. Come on. My team is free. We work in small teams, okay? We don't have huge ones, but we have small teams, like 4 or 5 people. And team pair programming is also available. Like Join Me is an extra tool to do that. And I have few advices for you. First of all, as I said on previous slide, set up a tool set and rules to incorporation with your team. Because if you have it, then you can provide quite nice remote work if you have like Slack or Skype or everything else which can handle with your communication. Second, you have a trust to your teammates. If they need an app, just come on. They are people. They want to work with you and for you. So just tell them that they are free and in charge, so they can work in the best time of their day. Like if I am home and my work is better in the evening, I work in the evening. But I have a small time for contact with everyone. Then everything is okay. And at the last, be freedom. But at the same time, accountability is very, very important. Because then, of course, it's connected with flat structure. But even in flat structure, and remote workers can handle with very, very hard tasks. From me, it's all. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, feel free.
Hi, I'm Piotr, founder of XSolve. Thank you for sharing the story. Thank you for sharing the story. I always admired your company for the approach, so it's nice to finally have a chance to visit, to see you. I have a lot of questions, but one of the questions that pops up to me is, I think it's addictive, right? The company is addictive. So, would you, as a person, would you swap a company for some company that is brick and mortar office type?
We were wondering that maybe small office in Warsaw would be a good idea, but no. In the end, the problem with two channels of communication were crucial, and we didn't do that. And I don't know other companies with a similar approach, like totally remote and flat.
Yeah, sure. I think like combining this two paradigms, it's too hard, right? So, thank you very much.
Do you hang out with your clients on the initial stage?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention about that. Yes, we use TeamSpeak sometimes, but most common tool is Skype or Google Hangout.
Okay, and your clients doesn't have anything about
From Arabic countries, sometimes they have a problem with tools, but we cover that from other tools. So there is no problem with communication with them. Moreover, from time to time, our developers go to clients for a week or two. But it's rare, and after months or a few months, work with.
And you exist since how many years?
Oh, we are from 2009.
Okay.
I've got a question actually. If the customer would like to come over and meet with a team and work with the team for a whole week, what are you going to do?
Oh, last year we had similar situation, and our clients came to Krakow. We rent a flat, actually 2 or 3, and then we work remotely with the clients at the rented office or co-work, I don't remember. But it works, really. When we opened Pure Sky Club, it was a place for business in Warsaw, near Złote Tarasy. We had access to their offices, but now we don't have any. Yep.
I would just ask you if you use an enrollment system application on the workers.
No, please don't. No, we don't have. Of course, for client, we need to schedule everything, and we have task tool for them. But internally, we don't measure it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Yep.
You said that you don't use Holacracy, but you're a tier. So my question is, in what way are you a tier? You could elaborate on it.
First of all, okay, we are remote from the very beginning, but in 2013, we opened books and get flat. That means we don't have middle management. The owners are also coders, so they work in teams, and everyone is in charge. Everyone can make decision. So in this way, we are team.
You said you don't have managers, but I can see on your website that there is a CTO.
Yeah, that's Adam, because he's most experienced from whole team. So that's the name of on the web. But in fact, okay, he's CTO, but other people are more experienced, for example, in blockchain. So they advise him in this area.
How are you dealing with a decision-making process?
It depends on the decision and how this decision has an impact for whole company. For example, with rising salaries, we had to check books, finances, and it took like 4 months. In other decisions, it was quite easy. For example, we have something like reading clubs. Like everyone can join in and read 1 or 2 chapters of the book, and once a week we chat about that. And that decision was like, no, just like that. We need this, so we have it.
But with those serious decisions.
This serious decision, for example, we have to say goodbye with one of our teammates, and that decision was really hard, and we struggling almost half a year.
And who made final decision?
We were voting, but the last voices were guys who were working with that guy.
Do you have any problems with managing sales? So, for example, some of you sell any project. So, does the developers are volunteers, or you manage somehow them? So, you tell them what to do.
They are volunteers, actually. Sometimes we say no to clients if the product is boring, but it's not so often. Most of our projects are made of people who are interested in this particular area. Okay. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kasia, for this amazing presentation. And right now, I would like to invite our next speaker. Our next speaker is Marek Konieczniak from Balkan, and he will tell us about beyond business and back, a discrete way of turtles. So say hello to Marek.
Hello, everybody. I'm really glad to be here. I was really looking forward to it when I was invited by Piotr, and thank you for that, for this chance to meet you in the center of Holacracy. And I know that it may be even naive to ask you. I know that one question shouldn't be asked: who hasn't heard, or who has heard about teal companies? I would like to ask another question, which is who's read the book Reinventing Organizations? Can you just, okay. Thank you very much. So actually my talk is connected partially with the book. Maybe it's the main reason that actually in Poland we have been talking about teal so much. I think this is connected with that book written by Frederick Laboux. So I would like to take you in, on a journey beyond business and back, and and to find out what a discrete pathway of teal is. But let's start with that book. Yes, indeed. Once upon a time, there was a book. In February 2014, I came across on the Ken Wilber's website, came across the book written by an unknown at that time, Frederick Laloux, which was called Reinventing Organizations. I didn't know Frederick Laloux, but I knew very well Ken Wilber. So his recommendation was enough for me to download the book. And it was in a pay what you feel mode. When I started reading the book, I got fascinated from the very first pages. And when I actually got to the moment, there was a case study of a school. Those of you who read the book, you remember that the German school in Berlin. Then I knew deep down that I need to make this book available in Polish to business and to education. And then all the events sort of, unfolded relatively quickly. I write to Laloux saying, listen, I love your book. I would like to have it, to translate it and have it published in Poland. Do you agree? He answers back, of course, dude, go ahead. I know what you feel. I love the book myself. So the next thing, I just translated some samples. I sent to 4 or 5 printing houses, publishing houses, with information that what you have in front of you is the most revolutionary, groundbreaking book, and I'm sure you're going to, you would like to publish that. I did believe that, but they didn't. I received only one reply, which was negative, and the others just ignored me. So then I just remembered about my background, and I got in touch with a friend of mine who is a professional translator of literature, who knew another acquaintance of ours, and who knew some people in the, publishing business. And eventually he persuaded Studio MK to publish the book. So to cut the long story short, in October 2015, the book was launched onto the Polish market. And that was the moment that the process of painting everything teal started. And it has been going on till now. I think, we have forums, reviews, films, debates, groups, communities, Facebook books, meetups like that, teal breakfasts. All these activities have been proliferating up till now. The question is, why? What's behind it? What's so interesting about this? Is this a new hype, passing hype? Is it still business, or has it turned religion, as some critics asked? Well, I think that to answer that question, those questions, I think we need to go back a little bit. And how far? I think way, way back. I would even risk to say that we need to retrace our steps about 150 to 200,000 years back. It is the time when Homo sapiens appeared on the stage. And it was a kind of really important moment for the universe. I think we could compare it to the second Big Bang. It was the Big Bang of consciousness. Homo sapiens transcended the level, the threshold of reflexive consciousness. Man started to be conscious of his being conscious. He could start observing his own thinking. We are the only species that can do that. And I think this maybe explains why man has dominated, the whole world, and it also explains the pace and dramatic development of human civilization. If we compare the estimated age of the universe, which is 13.7 billion years, to a 30-volume library, each volume has 450 pages. So then the Earth is found in the volume 29. life begins in volume 22, and human being appears, where would you put it? Volume 30, on the very last page. So that's really amazing. Look, I mean, if you compare actually this time 200,000 years, like it's twinkling of an eye, actually. As you know, Frederick Laloux used the theory of the evolution of consciousness by Ken Wilber. And if you plot the successive stages of evolution of consciousness here on this timeline, I think a striking information appears. It is really striking because if you look, it shows how fast that the evolution accelerates. I only can say that it looks like an exponential growth line here. But what is important actually is that for the first time in the human history that we have at the same time people operating from different paradigms of thinking living alongside. And the same with companies. I think if you care to look for in big cities, you'll find companies like XSolve and maybe amber companies, maybe green, orange, all existing alongside side by side. So it's for the first time. But what I think is important here is that all these names of the stages are very conventional. They could be any other. Actually, the graves, what will be called steel, graves called yellow. For the sake of our, well, let's teach you in here, right? But for the sake of our further reasoning, I would like to say that I would like to introduce the concept of till the mind, the mindset. Till the mindset as opposed to till the method, which is till the mindset actually state of consciousness. State of consciousness from which one can work out different ways of living and working methods and procedures. Whereas till the method is belief and conviction that methods and procedures are what makes a company till. And I think that there is this tendency, unfortunately, that we sort of disregard this side, this state of consciousness, and sometimes we focus on this side, thinking that procedures, certain structures, certain steps will make companies till. I think that there's a danger in that, and not looking at this side of the problem causes some misunderstandings. First of all, consciousness development model is not a building instruction for till organizations. In this, when we say till, actually it means coming from a state of consciousness which looks at the world in a certain way. It doesn't mean that it should be, holacracy or the management. These are things that spring out from that, but are not the most important. Ricardo Semler, do you know the guy? This one? Well, he is the former CEO of Semgo, also very, very till company in Brazil. And he, in conversation with Frederick Laloux, he has a Leadwise website where he talks to different people. He plays his podcast of these conversations. He asked him, he said, there is this danger. I see that people tend to use the word till as a label, thinking that this will solve their problem. And Laloux said that he never, when he was thinking about the book, writing about the book, he used the framework only as a kind of explaining and not as a kind of steps to tell the companies how to become till, implementing certain procedures and structures. And he went on to say, I understand till as a stage of consciousness, as a way of looking at the world and not as a framework the organizations should follow. So it's not like that the till framework is like 15 steps to make your company till. To my mind, Lalu's greatest success and contribution is actually that he himself operates from a teal stage of consciousness. Why is that? Without that, he wouldn't have been able to find all these teal companies. He wouldn't have known what questions to ask, what to look for, what to listen for. Mind you, that's one of the companies already mentioned here, Morningstar. It had been described before Lalu wrote about this company. But in what way? It was written that it's a company with non-conventional management and non-conventional CEO. Nobody wanted to see the pattern of thinking, this consciousness which breeds this kind of companies. So I think that if you look at these three features of teal companies, self-management, evolutionary purpose, and wholeness, they are not building tools. They are not the tools that if you apply them, you will have a teal company. They are universal solutions that people who owned or ran these companies came up with from within their consciousness, different way of thinking. Okay, and then of course you can use them, but if you want to use them without the changed way of looking at the world, it won't work. Some people say that there's nothing new about teal, that it's been in the world a long time ago, or for a long time, and they're right. Actually, traces and harbingers of teal, the mindset, has been with us since the word go, because the development of man is not linear. So I think we can find them in art, spirituality, science, business, art, many names, Michelangelo, all the Shakespeare, Dante, all the Polish poets, spirituality, all the sages, mystics, saints, they show their teal-like mindset. Science, Planck, Einstein, all the guys connected with the quantum physicists, and a lot of business people, authors. Drucker actually writes a lot about things that we could be called teal. But the common denominator of these traces, I think, is a certain attitude, and this attitude, I think, can be expressed in a series of sentences or guidelines, like do not be content with the status quo. Do not be afraid to break the rules and conventions, but at the same time take extreme ownership of your thoughts, of your beliefs, and of your conduct, and in that order. Don't be afraid do not avoid challenges, difficult situations. Doesn't mean you have to look for them, but do not avoid them when they are present for you. Forgive life and forgive yourself. Avoid adopting the perspective of us versus them. Delight in life. Allow yourself to be astonished by every day, every morning, every hour. Remember, there's a beautiful pearl hidden, placed in each of us. And look for it, listen for it. Try to find out, discover your DNA of your heart. Do not hide behind the intellectual philosophies, notions, or religious jargon. Always look for the living experience. Do not protect your little self, which means do not be afraid of mistakes, failures, losing your face, being ridiculed. And if you are afraid, trembling like a leaf, do not hide it. Show up in your vulnerability and let life lead. Learn not to control life, but to trust it. So these are, all these ideas that are very much teal-like. I think that the most important chapter in the book, and I recommend reading it again if you have some doubts about that, is chapter 1.3, Evolutionary Deal. Now let you see only the subtitles of that Lalou put there. Taming the fears of the ego, trusting the abundance of life, inner rightness as compass, life as a journey of unfolding, building on strengths, dealing gracefully with adversity, wisdom beyond rationality, and striving for wholeness in relation to others and with life. The most important of these is the first one. All the others just follow, stem from that. But when we read the ego, it doesn't mean ego in this commonly understood sense of egoism or egoistic. The ego here is what all the great wisdom traditions and religion traditions understand as false identity, false self, false I. At this stage, we sort of notice, recognize that that deep down there's another identity within us that is different from what we believe that we are so far. Like that's the way I am, and that's the world is. That's obvious. It is gaining a higher vantage from which the perspective of the world is broader than what the ego could offer. It's a bit like a fish jumping from the water for the first time and seeing the water. There's this joke, I don't know if you heard like that, there's this big, very wise and big and cultured fish in the ocean. And everybody knew this fish, and this fish was flying, it was swimming, and there's two little fish talking. And he was passing by and he says, "Hi guys, how is the water today?" And without waiting for the answer, the wise fish swims off. And these two just look at each other and say, "Water? Water? What's water? What was he talking about? What the heck was he talking about?" So actually, that's the realizing that you have another deeper identity is a bit like that. Okay, I would like to I'm not sure how I'm doing on time. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know that sometimes I get preoccupied so much with things. But anyway, I would like to read with you the most beautiful passage that Lalou quoted from another guy, Parker Palmer, "Let Your Life Speak." And he puts this into this chapter 1.3. And it goes like that. "Behind the understanding of vocation is a truth that the ego does not want to hear, because it threatens the ego's territory. Everyone has a life that is different from the eye of daily consciousness, a life that is trying to live through the eye, who is its vessel. It takes time and hard experience to sense the difference between the two, to sense that running beneath the surface of the experience I call my life, there is a deeper and truer life waiting to be acknowledged. That's, ladies and gentlemen, the essence of teal. And why is it the discrete pathway of teal? Why is it discrete? All the stages up to now, this red, amber, green, orange, are focused on the external area. Goals, purpose, everything on the outside. Teal is the first stage when focus is on the inside. It looks within to find the truth. It looks within to find a different way of looking at the world. Actually, why discrete? Because those changes, those examining, those looking for your path, for your story, for your true self, for your true career, it happens within, never in the limelight of a stage. Sometimes, the accompanying events can be like that, but everything is happening within. Okay, and still the method. I think that till the methods, concentrating on the structures, on the forms, on the steps, on the procedures, this will pass into oblivion. Believe me, I don't believe, if anybody talks about like a fashion, tea like a fashion, it will pass. It will pass away. And I think leaving in remembrance only the vague names of some courses and trainings like 3 steps to making of your company teal, 7 secrets of teal. Join us and we'll turn your company into teal company in 7 months. Maybe over a weekend sometimes they say. Right? I think that we, as to discover teal, we needed to go beyond business, but I think we need to go beyond teal as well, because actually this discrete pathway of the evolution of man's consciousness doesn't end with teal. We still don't know how many other areas, stages there are before us. So I think it's a sort of accelerating, never-ending story. And regardless whether you work in a company which you call liberated, holacratic, teal, or participative, or authentic, it doesn't matter. What matters is what's really driving people working there. And also, I think that with the evolution pace, there will be maybe new methods of working, new names that will maybe will become sooner than we all think. Well, thank you very much. Yes, I was prompted, I was giving advice. Maybe some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this amazing presentation. Now I would like to invite you for a short break. Maybe not that short break because it's 30 minutes. So it's a time for some snack in our cafeteria, but it's also time for networking. So we will see you in 30 minutes. And next part will be panel with Holacracy Practitioners. So I would like to invite Patricia, and Patricia will be hosting this part.
And we are not leaving with the list of
I remember.
Oh, I'm too bad in names to remember all names. Okay, so I would like to invite here Paweł. Paweł. But we need you here.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so for the discussion panel, we have a topic we will discuss today: Holacracy, not Holacracy, Holacracy and teal myths. But before it, could all of you say a few words about yourself? Who are you and why you are here?
Where do we start? Holacratic way.
Okay, so you're still pointing who is starting.
Okay, so my name is Jan Project. I worked at XSolve for I think 8 years. And I used to be head of engineering, but now one of my roles is leading of the engineering circle, which is the I think the biggest circle in the company, responsible for basically what we do, what we produce. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, hello, I'm Piotr, and I'm a founder of XSolve. I used to be a CEO. What I'm trying to do here, I think my main job here is actually to question everything in this organization in order to, to see what kind of limits we can achieve and how can we change this company, whole environment, and in the meantime to build a great web or internet products. I hope.
Hi everyone, my name is Paweł Jędrzejewski. I'm founder of the Serious company. We are 11 young and passionate people who set the purpose to catalyze trade with technology. So we do e-commerce mostly. We have our open source e-commerce project. We consult and train teams who build e-commerce products. We ratified our constitution less than a month ago. So we are still early in our journey into Holacracy. I'm a leading right now, so I'm not a CEO anymore. Yeah, we came here to learn more and discuss with other practitioners.
Hello, my name is Jan Lewicki. I work in photoclaim research. It's a Polish-German company helping photographers get money from the legal infringements. So we work with almost 100 to 150 photographers from all over Europe and US. I'm a case manager, so I'm producing or preparing legal drafts and legal documents for our lawyers. And in our company, I'm also a facilitator, secretary, and probably the most important for me, a crossing from partners.
Okay. Thank you. Great to have here your practitioners. I hope our discussion panel will be very fruitful. Holacracy and teal are right now very juicy topics, hot topics, I could say. And there is a lot of myths about those two topics. And I would like to speak with you as practitioners. What does it actually mean to you? And maybe we can talk to the people if those myths are truth or not. Okay, so first topic that I would like to start with. Holacracy or deal, company without a boss. What would you say about it? Is it true or not? And what do you think?
Like whether it's a myth or not, it is indeed a company with a boss. In the common meaning of the word boss, so someone who has power over other people, someone who can tell others to do something and to do it because he's the boss. So yeah, in a sense, the constitution is the boss. So I think it's not a myth. It's true. It's really a company without the boss.
Nice said. Constitution is the boss.
On the other hand, there are always founders or shareholders. So most of us all the time have a feeling in the back of our head that at the end someone else could make a decision. So there are no bosses, there are no managers at the working level, but there is still something above.
What above?
That constitution of holacracy helps to organize work, but there is always a risk that shareholders who are also workers or working with partners and could have some veto voice or something like that. So this is we need to all the time deal with it. The last word in discussions, the source of most ideas and so on.
Okay, so there is a boss.
Like,
there is one person who can just.
Not only one, but yeah, like colleague said, the constitution is the boss on the organizational level, but there is always a risk that at some point we can go to the corner where there will be some boss instincts, like something that acts.
And shareholders can always say, okay, this is the end of the company, right? So, or maybe clients or customers can say it as well, right? They vote by the contracts. But for me, actually, to me, it's a myth. But I don't know, maybe I had some problem since I was born, that I always thought that being a boss is not, to tell someone what to do. It's more like giving directions and helping things. So maybe I have a flaw in my thinking.
Being a leader?
Yeah, you can call it the semantics, or the words might be different, right? But I think in a common sense, if you say there's a company without a boss, you think there is a chaos, right? And I think that's the first thing which is a big myth. For us at XSolve and Chillit, it was actually quite opposite. We had so much freedom that we were looking for a tool that will give us more, that will handle our freedom. So we're going to be able to make more decisions on our own, and we won't be slowed down. So therefore, for me, it's more like a myth.
You said something about chaos. Do you have chaos in your?
All the time.
Okay. How about you,
I just wanted to clarify that I think it regarding the first myth, it very much depends on the type of the leadership that was there before. Like I wasn't used to telling people what exactly they need to do, even if I thought that something that's a decision is the right thing to do. I was always trying to convince them with rational arguments. So I think if you mean a boss who has ideas and is able to convince people, and yeah, there are many bosses, I would say, and people who previously were the CEOs, they usually have these roles. And regarding chaos. I think it's actually quite the opposite. There's much more clarity. It's much more up to date. From our experience, what we're trying to do now with Holacracy is not describe the way we want to work in the future, but the actual work that we are doing right now, map it into a structure. So this gives us a much more clarity in our daily work and responsibilities and so on. So definitely not chaos.
So if I can add my addition of chaos, I really like Holacracy because we can be chaotic in an organized way. To give you an example, we don't know where it's gonna lead us. I mean, we believe it's gonna be something good, and we know the first or second step, but we don't have a whole plan. We have direction, and very often it's kind of chaos. But it's nice that something handles that, and we have mechanism that this whole thing is not relying on a single person. So that's for me this controllable chaos.
I can only add that during the presentation I did on the day we ratified the Constitution, I said to everyone that this time is different. I don't really have a plan, and the tensions will meet us. So that was how I finished the talk.
Going back to the topic, do we have a boss or not? Maybe quick summary. We don't have one person who is a boss, but we still need leadership. Am I correct?
Yes, there's maybe. Okay, yeah, this leadership actually is at least split for 4 persons. Let's say like this, and can be a little bit less, but yeah, the good thing is it's not on the shoulders of one person, right? I think you can add something wiser.
Well, I think what's really important to say is that there are still some roles that are responsible for more high-level decisions that take different responsibility than others, right? But the authority to make decisions, the responsibility is more distributed in the organization. So it's like there are more people who could actually name themselves as a boss, but they're bosses of their job, of what they do, what they need to, how they need to align the whole organization is to align the strategy, the purpose. But still, they have a way to shape that purpose and that strategy. So everyone can be involved in the organization, but can make his or her own decisions.
And sorry to again to be on the mic, but there is one thing which surprised me a lot, which is a very simple thing. That distributed boss means that we can take, let's say, 40 or in our case even 100 decisions at the same time. That's the speed of life if it comes to organizations.
I like the concept that the boss is still there, but it's distributed. Like some people say that leading still holds like 30% of a traditional manager. But I think, yeah, the rest is completely distributed into different roles and individuals in the organization.
That's something I really like the word leadership. And it's more like leaders than bosses. Day-by-day work, and that's okay because we are all our own bosses in our daily work, but we need kind of visions or strategies, and I think something to be chaos. I think that less bosses, the more structure we need, and that's why Holacracy really helps, because I couldn't imagine how we could work remotely day by day without any simple but straight paths to communicate or to make decisions in smaller groups without one person who is deciding.
One experience I think I would like to add is I used to be some kind of leader of the development part of the company. But after introducing holacracy, I think in some way I'm still a leader, but distributing the authority and distributing being a boss actually gives some kind of feeling of being relieved. It's not like all the decisions and all responsibility is on me, right? Everyone is responsible for their work, and this is a very important thing for us, for me.
So it must be great for you.
Yeah, actually, but I think it helped not only me, but many people. Let's say development.
Yeah, and this is also a very important subject. That it's like Mark said, Holacracy is a system. So it's only sort of addition to what you have, and what you have is the people. So the people has to be leaders, and it's not like some kind of system will make you a better organization. It can maybe help you a bit, sometimes pretty much. But again, you have to have this leadership skills. You have to have people who want to do something, and you have to have people who actually want to be in, wants to do things in your company.
And I think your capacity as a boss or leader depends on your ability to gather followers and convince them with reason and with arguments, because there's the power of people over people. It's completely removed. There's nobody who can force anyone to do something unless they convince them.
There is one more advantage. Holacracy creates leaders, actually, because I see that some of my friends who became facilitators or colleagues started to leading some fields. So it's also a good thing that some voted roles and elected roles push people to leading in some areas.
So instead of one boss, you have many people who are allowed to, and it's pushed by the whole circle or organization to take decisions or to lead something.
Yes, some because I think that for leadings and for former CEOs, facilitators, as people who organizing and leading the meetings is kind of this source of relief. That you don't need to talk all the time during the meeting because you have someone else for that, and also that person started to feel responsible for the circle.
Thank you for this quote. I never looked at facilitators and leader also of the circle as a reminder to me. Okay, so I think we're covered this topic a little bit, and I think we all agreed that it's not one boss, but many people who are taking decisions and taking responsibilities for this decision. And so thank you for this. And now I would like to go to a little bit harder topic, or not harder, we will see. Are we all teal?
If you expect an answer like yes or no, I think it's a wrong question. I think it's a way, it's the direction into which you move, and like it was said today during the presentation, we can be surprised how quickly there's something above teal. Like if you look how the human collaboration and human consciousness evolves. Yeah, so I think it's more of a direction rather than the point where you get, and yeah, we are teal now. You can slap a badge, I'm teal, and that's probably a bit good for marketing, but that's a short-term strategy, right?
So maybe it's the explanation why we are into this topic. We have right now many companies on the market who are saying we are teal. We have nice office, we have no managers, we have flat structure, we are teal. So that's why I asked you if we are all teal or not. And what is your opinion on this topic?
Okay, I would like to believe that, I don't know if I never called XSolve chili teal. But I would like to believe that, you know, I would like to believe that what we are doing here, that makes people happy and it produces good results for our clients. And if it's definition of teal, then yes, we would like to be teal. I don't know if we are or we ever gonna be, but that's a good direction.
What do you mean by make people happy?
Make people happy is that if I'm waking up and I'm rushing to the office or to my computer, whatever, right? If make people happy in this aspect also means that I have problem to think what is my work and what is my daily personal life. It's another problem. So work-life balance is a different problem, right? Because I cannot distinguish if it's my hobby or if it's my hobby that I'm paid for or it's my job, right? So it can be dangerous. It's another subject, but this is my definition of being happy at work.
So teal for you is making people happy and also make client businesses work.
Yes, of course, because if business doesn't exist, this is like a really short run. This is only it's a job of the company, right? So we have to provide value for the customers who are paying us, right? So that's really important. It's our oxygen, right? There's nothing wrong on doing good things for the customer.
Okay, so if you ask if we are teal, then I would say no. It's you know, I think it's easy to say for an organization to say we are teal. If someone reads the blog post, it's harder if someone reads the book, and it's even harder if someone tries to in practice to be let's say teal organization. Considering that pillars of teal or organizations like wholeness, like self-management, like evolutionary purpose, I think we have some areas and many people who truly follow that and can take that opportunity, but also responsibility in practice. But for some people, it always will be something very abstract. And I think in many ways we take that opportunity as an organization to be teal, to explore it and to go deeper with actually every day and every month. But I think there always be some area for improvement, and there always be some areas of organization, some behaviors, some things that will not meet that teal definition. But on the other hand, what we can see is that trying to follow that rules, that concept, also practicing holacracy brings a lot of value to the organization, to how we work, what relations we have with each other, how happy we feel about the work we do. Because if we feel that there's some deeper sense in what we do, and we can explore that wholeness concept in the workplace. That's really it's really important for people, actually, for us as people.
I can only add two thoughts. First one is that it's quite it's easier to become teal, or I don't know that word very much because I've never had about that before our meeting. It's funny because I've always worked in companies that were totally anti-teal or something like that. But the first word is that prototyping, it's quite easy because our purpose is not only market purpose, but also kind of values like fighting for copyrights or fighting for making photographers better paid. So it was at the very beginning very connected with social activism and so on. So I think it was a good background for such a thing like teal ideas. And the second thing is, from my personal point of view, is that as you guys said, it's quite easy to be teal if everything is going okay, if everyone is happy or trying to be happy in the working environment, but it's getting harder if something is going wrong with the company, and it sometimes depends not only from our activity, because we are doing our best and we want best the company, but there is market, there are customers, there are many different reasons why business go wrong, and it's hard to stay teal at this point.
So how do you stay teal?
I'll just add that I think it's pointless to put labels on ourselves. I think the companies which are mentioned in the books are not teal because they wrote it on the website. It's because they completely changed the paradigm in the way they operate, and someone noticed that they are teal. So I think the goal of this is what I call our company. We aspire to be teal. The goal would be for someone in the future to recognize us as an example of good teal practice, or maybe something more if we evolve, and not bother too much about thinking, are we teal now, or is it yet? Is it already teal or not?
How do you recognize the company is teal or not? Because you said that you aspire to be recognized as a teal organization.
Have to have a good color in the logo.
Yes, I think it's not an accident. But really, I wasn't actually thinking that much about what will make us teal. For us, teal was the natural next step. It was not a decision made while I was thinking about what's the good strategy to win the market right now. It was basically a very personal journey during which I asked myself, like, what makes me happy? What kind of organization I would like to build? And then I think the life guided me to discover concepts like these, like wholeness, self-management, which basically match my principles and my philosophy of how people should interact with each other and so on. So I'm not overthinking these teal components. Do we have this yet or not? I focus on the core principles that I think go beyond Holacracy and so on, and then I evaluate whether, okay, is it the direction I imagined or not?
So you don't want to add anything? Okay, you don't
Surprisingly, surprisingly, yes. I've no clue. I think it's more like okay, that there's an interesting company, right? They do things differently, but it's not for the sake of doing things differently. It's more like you ask yourself why this company does it, right? The North Star is more, that's a very simple rule. Of course, if you the organization has to think beyond the revenue, right? The revenue or money is it has to be like oxygen or fuel, right? And but then of course, you know, it's the question how this organization solve things, right? And is it only for purpose of doing something differently only, or it's more like, okay, it's a really nice place that things are coming out of this place, right? So you have to, it's in your guts. There's no one rule how you can say this organization is teal or not. I think there's like tons of flavors, and in the times right now we will be having a big problems in framing things, right? So again, I think it's a definition, and like Marek said, it's very first of all, we have to distinguish from the teal method and teal itself, but it's different companies can be very different.
Can company decide we want to be teal?
What do you mean by company? It's difficult to think in collectives. So, like,
for example, can anyone in the company decide, okay, we are going to be teal, we want to be teal, let's do this?
They can say it, but what would be the action?
I'm asking you.
Because I think from perspective of CEO, owner, founder, you hold the authority, you have it in your hands. So you're the one to make the action and say, I distribute that. I'm no longer the boss, you don't need to obey me just because I'm the boss. I think it would be difficult for someone who doesn't have this authority now to say, okay, we go to your guys. And then the manager says, so what?
Yeah, but we still have to remember it's a sort of a big paradigm shift. So maybe for, I don't know what could cause that, I don't know, the founder or CEO wakes up and says, okay, I'm going to be teal right now, right? But if he has certain, I don't know, certain fee funding maybe, it's possible, but it's actually, it's more like other way around. You do things and then you find out, oh, someone called it teal. Well, that's more or less about us, nice. So I think it's, teal has to find you, right?
Any other opinions?
If being teal, the source of being teal is one of the leaders, as you said, I think that the important thing is to stay with that thought and encourage others and inspiring others all the time, because I think that I observed few crisis moments in the company, and one of the most important things was that the leaders of changes were sure that they are right being holacratic and encourage us to more self-management and so on. Because I think that the worst thing is that stop one moment and to be afraid of going further or deeper. So it's not only the problem of start, but it's more a problem of staying on the path of being healed, as we said.
I think this is a very good question for many people and many organizations asking themselves: can we become teal, right? And I think it's really not possible to turn everything upside down just one day. Teal is about values, about approach, about mindset, and you just need to have it for some time. And if you have it, if you apply this in everyday work, in practice, how you behave, how you work, then at some day maybe you can just adopt some teal methods, right, that might help you to go further. But I think this is really important, that organization must be share the two values in practice. I can't imagine any organization just turning everything around and becoming two just one thing.
Thank you. It was nice said. Nice to hear your opinion on this topic. My conclusion is I still don't know if we are all here or not, and how to decide if company is still or not. But maybe this will need the time. Right now, I'm just upset a little bit that we have a lot of companies that are calling themselves still without focusing on wholeness, on values, etc. But we will see what future will show us. And I have one last topic for you, because we will not manage to do anymore. I heard a lot of opinions that holacracy is bureaucracy. That we have corpo style, corpo roles, corpo language, etc. How this works for you? What is your opinion on this?
I don't really feel like we have more bureaucracy. I know maybe we have I would say we have similar number of meetings, just more collective. In terms of bureaucracy, we have a lot spirit, and that's pretty much it. We have much more documentation, guides, and other stuff other than holacracy specific bureaucracy.
I think you're right. It's a little bit corporate at the beginning, right? It's something like when you're driving car on the desert, you don't have any roads. You just drive, right? And you can go through South Africa without knowing any roads, and then you come to I don't know, let's say Paris, right? And you all of a sudden you have a lot of rules and signals and different cars, and you cannot go like that easily. You have to have this driver's license, right? And it's hard, believe me. I for the first time I had like 5 times then since for the passing my driving license, right? So it's hard, and it was also hard for me. I believe as a human, as a person, not as a CEO, to actually align with all those rules, right? So especially at the beginning, if you have like organization that it's free to go, just do things, right? You have to have certain patterns. You have to apply it, right? So at least from my perspective, at XSolve and Chile, we were more like, okay, we were restricted to the time box, and whatever we do in a time box before holacracy was the team's job. So everybody believed it was not wasting a time. And in holacracy, someone told you, okay, at the first step you have to check it, and this and this and this. So I was a little bit, okay, I think that's not my company anymore. It's kind of strange. Someone is talking. Someone said, okay, I cannot talk right now. Sorry. So especially at the beginning, we felt, okay, it's like a corporate word.
I think we felt in several traps regarding holacracy. One is, I would name it just a perception trap. Because, before we adopted holacracy, we considered ourselves somehow flat organization. We used to involve everyone in making decisions. We wanted to reach some consensus in decision making. We wanted everyone's opinion in decisions. At the same time, in many cases, we were perfectionists. And it looked like never-ending creative discussion, right? No decisions, just discussion, but creative one. So then things changed. There's that tactical meeting process, governance process. It says how we should make decisions, how we should integrate opinions, and it felt awkward. It felt, I would say, rude in some way, because it cut people off, right, in the discussion. It didn't give so much room for that discussion. But at the same time, it produced decisions that move us forward. So how it felt for best people involved in that process before and after change was a lot of creative discussion and then limited time for discussion. And it was sometimes, for some people, and for me as well sometimes, hard to notice that we actually make much more decisions and move things forward, but at the cost of not so maybe creative discussion all the time. Another trap, I think, is how we structure the company and how we perceive that rules and circles. It's sometimes tempting for some people, and actually for many people, to treat roles as capabilities that you are expected to follow, but rather like domains. So only you, if you have that role, that only a person having that role can actually make such decisions, make things that are specified in those accountabilities. But there's one concept in holacracy: you can do anything unless it's explicitly forbidden. And it's what we noticed. It was really hard for many people to actually apply this concept in practice. What made actually, I think, that made that the holacracy was perceived as something limiting, something like bureaucratic, that it gives you some limits. So I think there are many more traps in this, but I think those two are the most important ones from my perspective.
I totally agree with these two traps, and but I also agree that it is bureaucracy, but in a good sense of bureaucracy. And I think that we all need bureaucracy because all of us love freedom, or most of us, but we couldn't live without bureaucracy because we could kill each other just in today. So I think that everything depends on people, and if we are producing bureaucracy, and if we allow ourselves to produce more and more rules in our governance, it could be the wrong way, but for that reason we create such roles like, I don't know, governance streamlining or other roles who are just all the time monitoring and looking for just simply stupid things in the governance. And it's important to create rules, but also to create roles who are simply trying to do our lives, our work easier and more comfortable. So I really like the holacratic way of bureaucracy because I know what to do. I know my accountabilities. I could check them anytime I would like to. And for me, it's easier and less stressful to just simply check our governance than to ask all the time some manager or someone else.
Thank you. I think we just finished our time for this discussion panel. So thank you again for all owners of your opinions. I strongly sorry, I lost the word. You during the next networking, you can catch guys and ask your questions. We didn't cover some of them, so feel free to ask, but later. And I think it's time to give voice to Basia. So thank you guys.
Thank you very much, my dear panelists, but please stay here for a moment because I have small gifts for you. Yes, for you and also for our previous speakers. So I would like to ask you guys here, Kasia and Marek, please. So, yes, you want to help me, Kasia, this is for you. Marek.
Thank you.
And please stay here also for a moment because we would also like you. And take a picture of Jakub. Okay. Okay, Jarek. Without names, I think it's yours. So guys, if you could stay here, and I think that will take you off. So once again, thank you guys very much.
Sorry for Polish, but it was the question, do I need any introduction? No, I don't. Hello everybody, this is the end of the story. But I'm very happy to have you here, and I'm very happy that this is the second time that I can see some of you. That's nice that you are coming back. And hope to see you for the third time on sixth.
Yes.
Six. Why is that 5, 4, 4, 3, 3? Okay, 6. In Warsaw this time. So maybe for some of you this is a travel. Maybe for someone, I'm sure it's a hometown, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you so much to have you here. I hope that even before Holacracy was something a little bit weird, there is a little bit better understanding now. And you were very, very good audience with no cell phones. I really appreciate that. But if you have one, please use it with Holacracy Practitioners hashtag there. And if you have the Twitter account, you can share some post about us, or what do you think about the place, meeting, meetup, everything. And long story short, there is still some time to talk, to drink, and to ask questions. And we have some tablets in which you can share your opinions about the meetup itself, the organization team, and the organization itself. So please be so patient for a while more to give us a feedback. In the meantime, stay with us and talk, ask, share experience. Thank you so much.
Okay, so few things more. It's almost done.
Okay, there was maybe there are some questions to panelists, right? Because maybe this
questions to panelists. Maybe, okay. So few things. First thing is that here you can, in few places in our office, you can find QR code. If you scan it, then it will link you to the survey, and we will be very grateful if you could fill it. It's really short and really simple, and it will help us to improve our next meetups. And the second thing, I think we would like all of you to stand somewhere here because we would like to take a picture of our amazing audience. And the second thing is this questions for panelists. And I don't know how we will make it, but I think after this we will have time for networking. So maybe you can just come to them and ask. Maybe it will be the easiest. So thank you very much, guys, and I would like to invite you for the picture. Do you want this actually? Right now,
are there any questions to us? Do you want to guys to ask us like in front of everyone, or
let's grab a breather and talk.
Don't worry if I am the one.
No questions then? Okay.
He's got a question.
Who has a question?
That guy?
Yeah. Actually, I have a question, but I don't have to ask it on the forum, so it depends on you. If you are running out of time, you can finish it right now, because I suppose this is the goal, just to finish it right now. But if there is an opportunity to ask on the forum, maybe we should talk on the forum.
Okay, so ask your question.
Okay, so maybe we can invite panelists back again.
Yes.
I don't want to force anyone to. Okay.
Yay!
I'm sorry for getting you here. I have a question to Piotr, because I suppose you are the former owner of the biggest company, the panelists, and I suppose this was your decision to adopt Holacracy, or wasn't it? If you could say quickly. Just this simple question, so I could move forward.
Okay, hopefully I'm not a former owner. But yeah, I was like a maybe forced drive, right? And it was not like I said, okay, guys, we're gonna go there and period, right? I'm kind of stubborn guy, so yes, it's hard if I see the road, there has to be strong arguments to take me off the road, but yeah.
Okay, because in cities where 11 people now, and it was far more easier to change the direction and to delegate roles. But I can imagine that in 150 people company, it was far more difficult to do that. And I'm just curious, what was your first experience and why did you actually decide to adopt Holacracy? Was it because of your feeling that you are not efficient enough in your daily work? Was it your inner feeling, or you've seen the company is not going well, the business is not going well, because it's a huge move? So just if you could elaborate on it, please.
Yeah, okay, so first of all, I saw a lot of struggling people, including myself, in those teams we call non-development teams, right? So we have this privileged group of developers. The privilege, what I mean is that they were using Scrum, right? So they had their own order to be to work alone, and the other guys were trying to adapt different things from Scrum, Kanban, whatever, right? And it always had some glitches, very big glitches. So I was like looking for a system that actually will not slow us down. It will not only sort of. We had this decision that we could make more structure or more managers or whatever you could call it, or you can have a system that still will stay us with flexibility, etc. So I was looking for a kind of system, and actually it was easy because there's the Holacracy. I didn't find any else thing. So. And then my strategy is always like, don't read too much, don't go too much into details. Jarek will do that, right? It was quite easy, right? And again, there was like iterations. We love iterations, right? So we tried. We've been on a Holacracy taster. Then we had this. This training, then we launched only 1 or 2 circles, so everything in steps, not like, okay, we go there, right? So every time we learn something else, we also knew better risks and how can we respond it, right?
So one last thing, what is your current role, or what are your current roles?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. and this is what I haven't expected from Holacracy, that it can be so bloody dynamic. So my roles are changing like hell. And actually, today we changed, we combined business at Chile and at XSolve with one team. And we did a structure, and it took from 11 when I had this tension, we call it, and at 5 already there was 15 people working together. I mean, the structure was there, right? Some other things. So my roles is like, okay, I right now it's like I think I have this idea to follow more into growth hacking methods. So I'm one of the leading of growth hacking, right? I'm a leading of XSolve, and so these roles are changing, right? And that's really nice, because finally there's a tool that the structure is responding for our problems and our actually things how we solve it, and not the other way around. That we always, we always had this labels, and it was not clear what we're doing. So, but to name you, yeah, mostly I think I'm right now backing up business with. I'm a business navigator, so it's more like a strategy for a business. I'm leading of growth hacking, so it's more like a marketing with marketing team with developers, and based really on data and testing things. What else do I have? Yeah, I think I'm also. We have a couple of projects we cannot disclose right now because everything's online, but you're gonna hear it in a couple of months, I believe. So yeah, to sum up, the good thing is that like every day it's changing, right? And it's reflecting what I'm doing, and I can even be a developer. And it's again, like Eric said, it's a really relief, right? C-level guys are also human, and it's also. It's nice to be boss from one perspective, but it's also very hard because you are very lonely, and you have to do certain things, and whole company is on your shoulders. And right now it's like, okay, I can be developer, and everybody knows that, and I can have different like shifts, and I can do it. It's not like how to say? It's not like a play of developers or something. It can be my job.
Do we have any other questions?
Yes,
I can try with I am guilty too for the questions, don't worry. So many times today we heard about the team companies. Holacracy is people, mainly, basically people. So I have simply questions about how you deal with the HR stuff when you're hiring someone. I don't know, simply you ask them, are you teal? Or are you Holacracy friend? Or the next question is about the different kinds of personality. Because we know that people are different, so one is dominant, supportive, whatever. How do you develop them to let me say, help them to understand the Holacracy in this kind of context?
I can answer because last week we were 10 people. So one person has joined us. We didn't change much about our hiring process. There was a pretty much company-wide tension that we need some help in specific type of tasks, and these tasks were already performed. So during the last governance meeting, we mapped these accountabilities into roles, and to be honest, the onboarding of a new person was really smooth because there was huge clarity in what everyone expects of this person, and yeah, so I would say it was actually much smoother than previously, although we were 11 people, so not that much hiring so far.
I can tell you from the bureaucratic level. So first of all, we created roles responsible for that. So there is hiring role, and leading of each circle could simply ask spending authorization board if we had enough money to hire one more person because I need him or her to my circle. And then hiring role, just simply looking for the best person. And yes, at the level of the interview, there is a lot about holacracy and about self-management things. And after that, we have some onboarding roles, that's training or just creating tools for that person. So it depends what you need and how would you like to do it, and you just simply creating special roles with special accountabilities.
And so always it's going smoothly. Let me say that without a problem, or someone is fighting with I'm not really like, so it's company, let me say, obligate you to be and like the whole person now work in that an environment.
Yes, that's why it's not easy to have all the same. The team is changing, so if we went deeper into holacracy a few months ago, and I think that 25% of the team changed because people just simply decided that okay, it's not my way, and it was okay. It was clear. It was honest, and I think it's a good way to show the cards and say that okay, we are holacratic. We use that tools, and if you like it, if you would like to join it, you would love it probably.
I think for us, I think every circle or team has some specific way of dealing with it. But in general, for us, people circles, so in a common way, it's like HR. They're just delivering certain candidates, and the final decision is being made by the team. So, and of course, the team is being helped by one of the people from people circle. So, different techniques how to let's say interrogate the candidate or whatever. But more or less, it's like checking if one person fits to company's DNA. It's very different. Sometimes we work for one day together, or sometimes even more. Sometimes we ask different questions, like if candidate would really, if he takes care only about money, or it's something more, right? So yeah, maybe you have some more details, right? Yeah.
I think this is a very important thing for every company that every company that cares about culture, right? And culture is something important in the company, and I think it always should be. Then every HR department or people circle, like in our case, should take care of whether candidates that come should have that, whether they have, let's say, approach, values, some traits that are matching the company culture. And of course, if for some, if it happens that we share some two values and have some two elements in our culture, then of course the candidate must be ready to work in such an environment. Some examples. I think everyone who joins XSolve must be ready to take responsibility, to be brave in some way, to be ready to work in transparent environment, to contribute to explore that wholeness, right? To sometimes to get rid of that ego and differentiate between that ego part. So that's one part, and I think on one hand, on one hand, an organization loses some opportunity to grow if an organization takes care of about values, right? But on the other hand, I think this is really crucial to have people that are ready and actually happy in such an environment.
One thing to add, because this is really a thing that, for instance, we do not headhunt, so it's because we do not hire for skills only, right? It's like addition. It's more like a person, and I think the more holacratic we are, it's more person who matters, because other things it can be developed, right? But we focus only on and the other thing is because we only focus on hiring, but then the whole organizations can have to be built around cultivation of knowledge, of skills, etc. So our job as an organization is more like having like person is onboarded, and then there is a journey to only learn more. So it's also pretty limiting factor in terms of growth. Like we have to have people who really wants to learn and by themselves. So they won't be, it's still there is no way to implement to you certain skills, right? It's not metrics. So yes, it's on a strategy or management level. It's also a decision that you have to stick to your rules, which means that short-term goals are very often have to be compromised by this, long-term goals that we don't hire brilliant developer that he won't fit. So that's period. It's end of discussion if he's best in town.
Thank you.
Another question.
Yeah, I have a question. We're developing a skill set and hiring people. So how do you manage talent in your company? If we are working people with skills, right? You don't hire a skill set, you hire talent. So how do you manage skills within your company?
The first thing is Holacracy doesn't care about the area of people. It's only a set of rules. So it's actually company and the people, the mechanism inside have to take care about skills. Any details?
Okay, so I think I would say that our approach is to give opportunities for everyone to develop their skills. On one hand, we try to clearly define what competencies are needed for projects we do. On the other hand, it's not created by, let's say, management or some top roles, right? Development teams contribute to our skill matrix or definition of skills that we need. They are involved in creating the role definitions in development. And as a company, we try to create opportunities by assigning some time of our company to communities of practice, to some time for self-development. There are many initiatives in created by people, introduced by people circle that support people in self-development. But I don't know if that answers your question. Maybe someone from the people team.
Maybe no. Time boxes are horrible, but what would be life without them? So thank you, my dear panelists. I think that's it for this part. If you have any other questions for the panelists, I think you will have time during this networking. Right now, that's all. Thank you. And I would like to invite you, all of you here, and we will take this one big picture. Thank you, guys. So please here on this stage.
I ask you all to squeeze a bit, just a little bit of this. Thank you. Especially those people over there. Come over, please. Right, if you can right, please. Okay, some more. Everybody say cheese. Cheese. Thank you. One for my own purpose. Thank you. One more then. So let's repeat the procedures. Say cheese. Cheese. Beautiful. One more. Repeat the procedure. Okay. Everybody say cheese. Cheese. Right, one for me. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Oh.